Morning YouTubians, Gary, VW Jawbreaker. Welcome back to another video. Today we're back on the 1760cc stroker build for Jawbreaker. Off camera, we went ahead and got the case all cleaned up. I go through and wire brush all the threads on everything. I taped the threads off on the head studs. Went ahead and painted the case. I know that's controversial. You do you, I'll do me. But before I painted it up, I went ahead and degreased everything real well, of course, with my favorite degreaser, Super Clean. This is something that, you know, I know it's on YouTube a lot. People are like, oh, Super Clean, Super Clean. This stuff really freaking works. Matter of fact, if you want, drop a comment down below and say Super Clean rocks. And we'll pick one of you to be a winner of a care package from Super Clean. Pretty simple, right? All you have to do is be subscribed to the channel, and you need to live within the 48 continental US. That is their rules, not mine. So again, Super Clean works amazing. I use it on my barbecue grill. I use it on engines, transmissions. I use it on all kinds of stuff. This stuff is very versatile. They don't even pay me to say this. I just love this stuff that much. And they like to work with me because, well, you guys are awesome. So again, got everything nice and clean in the case via the Super Clean. And now we are ready to go ahead and start building the crank out. So if you remember, this was all just mock-up. So I'm gonna go ahead and take everything apart, flush out the journals real well, rebuild, go ahead and build the crank back, put our gears on, our bearings on, all that, and go ahead and today, I'm gonna go ahead and get the short block built. That means there's a few other things that we need to go over via cam, oil pump, and stuff like that when it comes time to building your short block. So stay tuned, let's dive into this. Let's get the short block done today. All right, we got our rods cleaned up, our crank cleaned up, all the journals flushed out multiple times. Those are all clean, everything's clean. So just like mock-up, we're gonna go ahead and assemble our rods with our bearings and go ahead and get all of our rods hung. So you got a tang and a tang on the bearing, and those go together, just like so. Do the same thing on your rod cap, just like so. Make sure they're all the way in there. They feel good. I'll go ahead and lube that up. I like using the Permatex Ultra Slick with a little bit of 30 weight in it. Now again, you want to make sure with your bumps, have those corresponding to the proper side. Your bump goes up for the side that the rod hangs on for that cylinder. Now these little, got like a little washer on it. That washer needs to go down, and I'll show you why here in a little bit. All right, now on the rods, again, want your bump up, bump up, bump up, bump up. So that's pretty much how that goes, just like that. That's your rod orientation. So this is 3, this is 4, this is 1, and this is 2. So now that we got that squared away, again, like I said, if you put that washer down, if you notice right here, you've got a little indentation. So you use a small punch or something like that, actually take and peen that. It helps lock it in place. And that's really all there is to it. So next we need to go ahead and put our gears and our spacers on. So we have to put this bearing on first. If you remember, we marked our bearing beforehand. So all we need to do is just lube her up. Yeah, I know I usually use a little bit much, but there we go. Now, these two gears need to go get heated up so they can slide on. They're a press fit. So if you notice, there's no way. So we'll go ahead and get that cleaned up. This one looks really good. This is your distributor drive gear, and this is your timing gear. So we'll go ahead and get this squared away, get this set up. All right, got the gear heated up on the stove in the house. Don't tell my wife. Actually, she's gonna smell it, so it's fine. There we go, it's on. Now we'll take our spacer, put that on, and then we'll go get the other gear. Now the timing gear goes on, or the distributor gear goes on much easier. It's brass. There we go. Take a punch lightly, and make sure that it's seated. Now that we have the gears and the spacer on, we're going to put the snap ring on, and that just slides on. You heated those gears up, so the crank's going to be a little warm, so be careful. And that's it, gears are on. Now, one thing I like to do is I like to mark my timing marks so I can make sure that those are where they need to be. If you look right there, there's two little dots. I like to put paint on them just to make life a little easier when it comes time to setting your timing. Now that we got that set, we've got our line pointing back. Throw some oil on that, let it go everywhere. Got our mark on that bearing. There we go. Now we have our oil slinger, which the curve needs to point away. Put that on. Then we have our crank pulley woodruff key. And that just goes in there like that. And now we can use my fancy dancy little Utimus. We'll be able to use that to spin the engine over. Now we can move on to our cam and cam bearings, getting all that mocked up and set. So we'll go ahead and open up our new double thrust cam bearings. These have a thrust side on both sides. That one goes right here. And then you've got some narrow ones and some medium ones. Your narrow one goes back here, and then your medium sized one goes up here. Make sure you get the little tang in the groove. And when you go and set your cam in place, one thing you want to watch is sometimes these double thrust bearings will actually pinch the journal right here, and we'll have to modify that. Way to test is drop it in, and I have no backlash whatsoever. Spins, but I don't have any backlash. Need a couple thou backlash. So what we need to do is we actually need to pop this cam bearing out. So I've got a piece of emery paper right here. This is a very flat surface on the bench. Hold it flat. You want to sand just a little bit off both sides. Then try it again. Put the cam back in. Got a tad more that time, so just need to do it one more time. Third time's the charm. What do you think? There we go. A couple thousandths of play right there. That's pretty good. Now we need to do that to the other side of the case as well, so you don't have the same problem on the other side. We're looking good though. Getting closer. Now something else a lot of people do not talk about, and I don't understand why, is your oil pump in relation to your cam. So like I said, we full flowed this case. This journal right here feeding into the engine we're going to be tapping that. So I have, this one here has an input but no output hole. What you want to do is take your oil pump, fit it to your case. And you're like, but why would you want to do that, Gary? Because a lot of the times your oil pump in an aftermarket cam will actually hit, and you want a little bit of clearance in between that. Or when the gear goes in, it doesn't go in all the way. So we actually have enough clearance on this one, but if you didn't have enough clearance and you had the typical bolt-on gear here, you'd want to clearance the bolts just a little bit. You can drop those down some, or you might have to clearance the boss here and make everything fit. I've had to clearance this boss, I've had to clearance this boss, I've had to do what you got to do to make it work. But because we're using a 26mm pump and a stock cam, we can spin it and everything moves nice, and we still have some clearance in there. So we don't have to worry about that hitting. So speaking of this oil port being tapped for full flow, let's go ahead and get that done now before we forget. So I'm just going to use a little bit of blue Loctite on the plug to help seal it, hold it in place. It's not going to go anywhere, but you never know. And it's not like with blue Loctite we can't take it back out later because it's only blue Loctite. We've already verified that this slides down in or recesses far enough in there. That's all part of our case prep. And just snug it up, that's all you need to do. Yep, still below. We're good. So in your typical gasket kit, you'll get a bunch of metal gaskets, rubber gaskets, paper gaskets, pushrod tube seals, oil pan gaskets, or sump I should say. You'll get your crush washers for your sump, valve covers. Some of them even come with the O-ring main seal. You will not use every gasket in this case. Not all of these are prudent. You've got different oil cooler seals. It's kind of like a generic, right? So you won't use all of these. You got single port and dual port tins in there. So what we need to do is we need to go ahead and open this up, get our case stud O-rings out, and get those installed. Now we got our lifters, and these are the old set of lifters that came with that cam. What you do is you can actually take, and if they are not, they're supposed to be convex, not concave. So if you put them together, they should slightly rock, and they do. When I marked these, before I pulled them out of the old case, I marked them. There's 4 exhaust, 4 intake, so I know where they go. Your exhausts are always on the outside, your intakes are always on the inside. Throw a little oil on them, drop it down in, make sure she nice and smooth, rotates. There we go. Same thing with the intake. Nice and smooth. So those are done. It's a good thing I marked those a long time ago. All right, lifters are done. Before I forget, some people like to do oiling mods on these lifters, where in between these 2 grooves on that flat part right there, they'll actually cut a line with like a Dremel. And they'll do that on like 2 sides to help oil flow in between on a higher lift cam. This being a stock case, not worried about it, we're not doing it. Stock lifter, stock cam, we'll be fine. Now something else I'm going to do, even though these lifters are matched to that cam, we don't have to do this, but I am going to go ahead and throw some break-in grease on the cam lifters. This is something I probably don't have to do, but you know what, doesn't hurt. Whatever you do, even though this says engine assembly grease, critical break-in protection for internal engine components. Do not use this on your bearings. Do not. Big no-no. You don't have to put this on the cam since you're putting it on the lifter. Some people like to put it on the cam, not the lifter. Some people like to put it on both. You do you. I'm just kind of showing you what I do. That's it. We'll do the other side of the case and that'll be done. Go ahead and oil up our split bearing real quick. We're ready to go ahead and drop this crank into place. Right, now we just need to line up our marks. And these things are already wearing off. We are far off. Ooh, now that feels good. All right, we're there. Now, remember those 2 marks we made up here? So we'll bring this around slowly, easily. There we go. We got our 2 marks. Now our cam has 1 mark. And if you notice right there, our 1 mark is in between our 2. So we are properly timed. Now, one thing I suggest you do, there's some oil down on the gears. Also make sure you oil your cam bearings. It's going to be difficult, but you need to make sure that cam gear does not jump out. And it's not. It's staying put, which is good. That means that cam gear meshes with the crank gear. Excellent. Take our bearing, half bearing one more time. Yep, nice and tight. We're ready for assembly. I've got my half bearing installed, lubed up, cam bearings in, lubed up, lifters in, lubed up. Take a little bit of brake clean your mating surface here. What I like to use is the Yamabond Motorsports 4. Just a thin layer all the way around. It does a really good job sealing up. Don't need much, thin layer. And get back here to the back, watch your little vents that you made. Now I like to go ahead right now and put a thin layer right here where your cam plug goes. Speaking of cam plug, let's go ahead and get that installed on the other side. So your cam plug goes right here. I like to put this facing in with that facing out, just drops in right there. So what we'll do is we'll take, this side is also cleaned up, this side of the case I should say. Again, flat side in, right there. Little extra goo right there in the corners. All right, we've got everything squared away. Everything's locked down where it needs to be. We have our lifter clips in to hold the lifters on this side, O-rings on the studs, everything glued in. Time for marriage. Well, let's stand the rods up first. There we go. Now that we have the case together, we're going to go ahead and pull our lifter clips out of this side. Now something I like to do is you've got your case half washers. Flat side goes down, rounded side goes up. That's what I do. And I also put a thin layer of RTV on the back. Precautionary. You do you, I'll do me. We'll go ahead and start running this down a little bit. Make sure she still spins nice. She does. All right. Very nice. Now we'll go ahead and go to final torque. Research your numbers. Here's the question. Will she turn? Oh yeah. She turns very nice. Perfect. The only thing left is all of our perimeter 13mm hardware. Oh, there's none back here. I don't know why I'm pointing over there. Up here, around the front, around the back. Now, these two here, I recommend putting a little bit of sealant on those washers because it's right there by the cam journal. So same thing, got your hardware, and just a wee little bit, drop her down. Same thing with this one here. The only two you need to do. Unanimous. We'll go ahead and get those two torqued down, and then we'll go ahead and just knock out the rest. All right, now it's just perimeter hardware. All right, oil pump time. So I did not tighten down this case little perimeter stud or this one here. Left those loose so I could tap in the oil pump. Now again, this is a full flow style oil pump, so I have an inlet hole, no outlet hole, and we blocked it here. It's already tapped off. Now one thing I like to do is down here, I like to radius this over a little bit. That way the oil coming in doesn't have a hard 90 to get to that gear. Your oil pump should come with 2 gaskets, or your oil pump kit comes with 2 gaskets. A thicker one and a thinner one. The thinner one goes on the cover. So we need to, like to use just a little bit of sealant. Again, a little bit goes a long way. Just a thin film. Make sure we're clean on the inside. Set our gasket on. We'll do the same thing to the back side of the pump, just a real thin film right along the edge there. All right, we got our little dab on there. Input hole, input hole. I'll go ahead and drop in our gear. Drop in our gear. All right, so we got a little bit of grease thrown in there. This is also controversial. Super thin layer around the edge. Again, you do you. Now the super thin gasket. And now our cover. Again, I'm going to put a super thin layer on our cover here. Now I hope I have enough stud sticking out. Good grief, that's going to be tight. It is brutally hot and we've done a lot. So the recap, case is together, oil pumps in, oil pump covers on. These are 3/8 NTP to 8 AN, and I've got a little cap on there to keep debris out. Now we'll go over the lines when we go to, later down the road, but they're not your typical AN lines, if you will. Just think of budget friendly. We did this on the 60. Got this idea back when that 2054 was in Jawbreaker. Oil pressure sensors in. Really the only thing left to do on the short block is sump and our oil relief plug. So we'll go ahead and knock that out after a short break. All right, you got your 2 oil reliefs. Your plunger goes in. We'll throw a little oil in, lube her up. That'll drop right down. Long spring goes in, and your back one goes back here. Same thing, we'll lube it up a little bit. Plunger, and short spring goes back here. Sorry about that, my camera shut off from the heat out here today. It's hot. So got it buttoned up, got our little dipstick on. Underneath we got our sump cover on with our screen. We are running a screen. And then these right here I love so much better than the stock style with the little flathead. You can actually pick these up from CP Performance or CIP1. I got these from CIP1. They're hex head and they're also 1/4 inch inside, so you can use like a 1/4 inch drive or a wrench. Works great. Short block is buttoned up, so I'll go ahead and tape everything off and then probably bag it. And then next video we'll dive into checking out the heads, deck height, compression ratio, valve geometry, all that fun stuff to button up the long block. So that'll be another long video. Bear with us. There's a lot of information here in these engine builds. Oh, before I forget, the Teflon tape that I used is actually yellow. It's not white. Yellow Teflon tape is actually fuel and oil resistant. So now you know. All right, guys, appreciate you being here. Thanks so much for sticking around. If you like this video, do me a favor, give it a thumbs up, subscribe, drop down below in the comments and go, yay, short block is done. Thanks so much for being here, guys. Till the next time, be kind to one another and be good.